Everybody out there, welcome to episode 1 of season 2 of Behind the Start Line. We are so excited to be here. I am your host, Eric Burnett, with my good buddy, CEO of P3R, and our co-host, Troy Schooley. Troy, good to be back. How are you doing?
Glad to be back. I was excited to start this season. Everything's going well, Eric. Yeah,
good.
Everything's going good.
I missed you.
I missed you too. I missed you too. Yeah, we've been good here at P3R. I mean, battling like everybody else has, but we've been very fortunate. I mean, we have a great base of runners, obviously, people that want to move with us. We have great partners that continue to stick with us, and we were able to show them, different marketing pieces and activation and, ROI. And it's been great. And I think that we finally can see that light at the end of the tunnel. It was disappointing that, we had to change the marathon in May to virtual. We had all the plans. A big shout out, a big thank you to the city. They worked with us so hard over the last several months. And we just came to a conclusion that there was no way to have 40,000 people on Liberty Avenue. And not just that, all the other aspects that people don't think. You see races happening around the country, and people are saying, well, this race happened. Well, first off, it was probably 500 people.
Yeah, little 5K, hometown 5K.
Probably, it was a regional event. We have 20 countries, 50 different states. And it just wasn't the time. It's so close, but it wasn't. And like I said, I want to thank the city because we put together really comprehensive plans and worked with them. But with that being said, our virtual event's going to be great, and we're going to be back to a live start line very soon with the plans that we already had in place. So there was so many different factors, and we heard them all. I think the easiest part about the marathon was going to be when we got the people on the course. If that makes sense. Mm-hmm. So having 30,000 people throughout Shady Side and the South Side and running over West End Bridge, that's fine.
Sure.
But when you dig down a little bit deeper, which we have to do, you look at the expo, you look at, 2,200 hotel rooms. Yeah. You look at Point State Park with the current restrictions of the people that are allowed to go into state parks. You look at the finish line. You look at the kids event. So you look at all these different factors. And the easiest part, like I said, was getting them out on the streets. They're fine once you get them on the streets.
Right.
It's everything else that we had to work in. And unfortunately, it just wasn't time. Like I said, it's real close though. And that gives us optimism. That gives our team a lot of optimism. We're planning live events now, starting with that Liberty Mile in July. But our fall, we're going to be announcing it. We're adding another event. Our fall events are ready to go. I think they're going to be awesome. So yeah.
Well, I mean, first of all, I got to applaud you for the optimism. That's why I love you. That's why I love P3R. You guys don't let anything get you down. And I mean, of all the industries in the world right now, I mean, I'm sure there are some other ones that are challenging. Right. It's up there too, but the endurance industry, it's just taking a massive hit.
It's decimated. It's decimated. 70%. Yeah. 70% of the industry is out of work. And that's unfortunate. That's really unfortunate, but hopefully we come back, and bigger, better than ever. You never want to see a race go away or an endurance company go away. Right. Unfortunately, there has been. And we've been able, we have all of our all 25 full-time employees just, and with us, Eric, and we've talked about it a lot, is that we're not just a race. We want people to know of all the different programs that we have. So our youth programming, we haven't been able to go into the schools, but we're creating youth content and, exercises for parents to show their kids. During COVID, we created the 4-on-2 varsity program, which is a high school program that we're working with high school coaches. And we're going to get more of our athletes that went through the Kids of Steel program involved in our 4-on-2 varsity. So they show up at the start line.
I love that.
We're working on different partnerships with local fitness studios. We just unveiled our local series that local fitness studios are providing us content to share with our runners, and we're granting them back money. So we're very fortunate that we're so diverse from a standpoint of having all these different programs and not just one big event in May. I mean, we have 14 different events throughout the year. Obviously, the Dick's Sporting Goods Pittsburgh Marathon being the best. or the biggest, I should say. But our portfolio is very diversified, and we're excited to continue to. We have another big partnership right now in the works, so we're super excited to announce. And it's outside of an event. So it's exciting times. I'm sorry, I'm going on a tangent, but I'm very proud of how the team reacted, especially seeing bad news day after day in our business, in our endurance space. A race canceled, a race went away, they shut the doors, a race, moved from May to October, not knowing if they're going to have it even in October because they don't have the funds. So we're really excited about the future here.
Yeah, totally. Well, you guys, I've said it before and I'll say it again. You are the ingenuity at P3R is amazing. And you are the perfect example of an organization that when the chips are down, you, instead of sulking and giving up, you find new ways to thrive. And you clearly have done that. And I'm super excited to see all these new things that you're unveiling and see how they play out. And it's just going to make running in Pittsburgh, when we do get back to in-person events, that much more interactive, that much more, connected, and in such great ways, in-person ways, in virtual ways. It's going to be really exciting to see. So,
what I was just thinking too, we should do some breaking news on the pod of some of these new partnerships I was talking about.
Absolutely.
We'll talk to the producers, but I think that would be a cool way to unveil some of the partnerships I'm talking about, potentially new events. It could be good for season 2. Speaking of season 2, the guest that we have today, I'm super excited about. It took us a while to get her, but we wanted her to be the opening act of season 2. And I don't think she's going to disappoint because her resume is unbelievable.
She's a VIP. She's like the Leonardo DiCaprio of the endurance sports world. She's well,
anybody that can list that they were involved in a couple Stanley Cups and the list of athletes, she goes high on my list.
Definitely does. So, well, let's not hold back our listeners any longer. Let's go ahead and introduce this great first guest of this second season. We have a sports psychologist, a doctor in the field. She's the head of Capex Consulting, and she's none other than Aimee Kimball. Aimee, how are you?
I'm great today. How are you?
Good. Super pumped to have you on the show with us. I really think that a lot of people could benefit just from your knowledge, from your expertise. Obviously, they're doing so every single day, but hopefully our listeners can glean a little bit of the advice that you have just based on your experience in the sport. Okay. Let's start out by talking about that. Can you tell us just a little bit, of your experience in sports psychology? I know you've got a huge resume with a long list of accolades. Maybe tell us a few of your favorite instances throughout the years. Yeah,
so I've been doing this, probably a little over 15 years now, at least in the Pittsburgh area. I have a Ph.D. in sports psychology. I got that at Tennessee. Before that, I went to Miami of Ohio. Actually taught Ben Roethlisberger in class for all the Pittsburgh fans out there.
Did he show up? Did he actually come to class?
He was actually an excellent student, and we had a group project, and he was the leader of the group project. Other than that, it was a pretty easy class. So literally all you really had to do was show up.
Yeah, funny story. Quick side story. Whenever I was at Pitt, I had a recitation with Larry Fitzgerald in my class. And every Friday at that recitation, the teacher would announce Larry's name, and we would all turn around to see if he was there, and he never showed up. Just
hopefully Larry's
sorry,
not
Larry.
Listening.
Yeah, Larry, if you're listening, I'm sure you're a good student in all other ways, but that was history of jazz, and I guess it wasn't your tune.
Yeah. So. No, he was still a freshman, so kind of had to show up still.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So I came to Pittsburgh after graduating, and then I used to work at UPMC at the Sports Medicine Center. I worked there for 10 years, and through my work with them, have worked with, probably at least 100 different high schools, colleges, all different levels. And then I started working with the Pittsburgh Penguins. So I worked with the Penguins for 10 years, was part of them for 2 Stanley Cups. And then I was asked to go join the New Jersey Devils. So I joined the New Jersey Devils as the director of player and team development. And big news, I'm now going to be working with the USA women's hockey team. This just started over the
That's
past
awesome.
little bit. Yeah. So that's pretty exciting. I don't run. I do not like running. I like my Peloton, but running is not my thing. So I like to tell the distance runners, whatever kicks in about 20 miles for them usually kicks in at about mile 2 for me. But mentally, it's the same kind of things.
Right.
Well, I mean, hockey is an endurance sport. The players they're out on the ice, and I'm not saying that hockey is your the only thing that you focus on, but it seems like certainly you could say it was your specialty, correct?
Yeah, pretty much at this point.
Yeah. So, but I mean, that can obviously be applied to endurance sports. There's tons of calories that are being burned when you're out there on the ice. And I feel like it really is in a lot of ways similar to running.
Yeah. And most sports, it doesn't really matter what the sport is. There's different mental challenges. So whether it's getting anxious before a race or before a game, or making sure that you're confident going into whatever the event is, making sure you're focused on the right things, the principles are still the same. So it doesn't matter what you're competing in, or even if it's in business and you're going to do a sales presentation, the basic tenets of the mental aspects of it are often very, very similar.
Yeah, that's a great point. Before we go any further, Eric, if you ever need an ego check with your resume or your background, just go look at Aimee's resume and you can sit down. So any of our listeners out there, I mean, it's just such a wide array. First off, congratulations on the Stanley Cups. That's awesome. Honestly, I would argue that your position, especially now in sports, is just as important as a head coach or a GM, because the mental aspect right now of sports is so key and really a focus. So going off that, what's a key differentiator that you see from some of the world-class athletes? I know someone here, number 87, I think is one of mentally the toughest athletes I've ever seen, compared to some of those amateur athletes that you talk about. What can you point and say, this person has this and we need to instill this into this amateur athlete?
Number one, the drive to improve. They never think they are as good as they can be. There's always a little detail, something they can fix, something they can just make a little bit better. And I think that sometimes when you're a high school athlete and you're kind of the star of your team, you might get a little bit content or complacent. But really the best of the best are the ones that are just driven and continual learners. Like they want to learn more. They can't get enough and they just continue to grow and develop, not because they have to, but because they want to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No one's resting on their laurels. They just want to keep winning championships and keep getting better.
Correct. Yep.
And along those lines, Aimee, how much pressure did you have, especially with the Penguins earlier on, as they were kind of going through those the cup runs, knowing that you're shaping these guys mentally in the Stanley Cup playoffs? I feel that are probably one of the toughest playoffs in all of sports. Sometimes you're playing 6-7 games a series. As Eric said, it's an endurance. I mean, you're doing a minute 30 shifts at a time. How much pressure did you feel, and what kind of got you along in helping those guys out?
Yeah, well, I didn't feel pressure because I was mentally tough enough to deal with it.
Right.
But no, I think it was actually really fun because I was generally a lot of these guys' ages when they were like really building the Penguins into the team that they were now. And so like I grew up a little bit as they grew up too, but I think a big piece of it was a lot of these athletes, when you look at the best of the best, have often got to where they are based on skill and talent. And then you get to this elite level and generally everybody's in the same boat. And then you really realize how important the mental aspects are. So I really enjoy working with the minor league players because that's when they first realize that they're going to be challenged. It's going to be a lot harder. This transition to another level, there's a mental game that's involved with that. And so they really do embrace the things that I teach them and that we work on. And then the idea is many people think if you go to work with someone who does mental training, sports psychology, it's because there's something wrong with you. But the approach I always take is it's just another thing that you need to do to make sure that you perform your best. And so really taking a proactive approach to preventing issues when there's pressure or when things aren't working out, because when you can prevent that by making sure that you have the mindset, it's a lot easier to excel at higher and higher levels.
I can definitely see that. I remember whenever I ran at Pitt, we had a sports psychologist there. And Aimee, you're totally right in pointing out what you said just a moment ago, because I think a lot of people think, oh, I'm going to see a psychologist, something must be wrong. And I certainly had kind of that feeling whenever I was running at Pitt too. But looking back on it now, I wish I had utilized that. That was just like a perfect service that could have helped me out. Who knows how much faster I could have been. So
yeah, and I'm not a licensed psychologist, so I do mental training. Like I really work on enhancing people's performance. And there's a difference because when you look at psychologists, they're often addressing mental health. And so it's an important thing to differentiate because sometimes there is a stigma around psychology. And the reason I call it mental training is because athletes are used to physical training. They're used to skills training. So this is just one other aspect of kind of that overall athlete development that they need to address.
Sure. Well, I want to talk a little bit about obviously what's been going on for the last year here in the world with COVID. And I want to see if you found that there were a lot of shifts in how you have to perform, your mental training, how you've been advising, your, do you call them patients or do you call them athletes? What do you usually refer to them as?
Depends. Usually either clients or just
clients,
my players. Yeah, whatever.
Sure. Gotcha. So have you found that there's been a major shift in what you've had to do because of COVID?
Yes, I've got used to Zoom. So that's pretty much ruled the day.
Haven't we all?
Zoom, Teams, whatever the Google Meets, I've kind of gotten adjusted to that. I will say I've started working with teams in person, and that's for me been great because I like the personal connection that you don't get off the robot computer screen here. Mm-hmm. But what was interesting is when sports shut down, so I have my own business, Capex Consulting, and so we get a lot of high school, middle school athletes. And when sports stopped, we didn't know what business was going to look like. But we realized it was needed even more because all of these athletes had their seasons ended very abruptly. Athletes that had been training for their senior year, it no longer existed. Juniors didn't know if they were going to have any opportunities to be showcased and get recruited. So there was a lot of just things people needed to talk through. And the nice thing is, as athletes, they're resilient. They've used these same skills within their sport to overcome losses, to overcome turnovers, and they're able to apply that resilience to life and to having to cope through all of this. And so that's why if people ever ask me, like, why should kids play sports? It's because how much of it can relate to life and how much you can learn from it to help you on whenever there's a challenge, whenever you're faced with something that you need to be resilient. You've learned that through sport.
What were some of your, advice points for high schoolers? Because we have a huge Kids of Steel program, 8,000 K through 5, but we're really just kicking off our 4-on-2 varsity program, which are high school athletes. Mm-hmm. And your point is so valid. I mean, these juniors and seniors that want to be showcased in either AU baseball or basketball or track and field, they miss that opportunity. And there was some definite mental fatigue and issues around that. What was your advice to these student athletes? Yeah,
well, first, my kids do the Kids of Steel program, and They love it through their school. Yeah, it's great, especially my little one. He just needs to run. Yeah. Cool. The big thing was that to let the athletes feel that how they wanted to feel, because I think a lot of people would just say to them, oh, you can't control it, don't worry about it, just go with it, but never let them sort of just have a bad day. And sometimes that's okay. I think the athletes who felt that they had to be tough, they had to suck it up, I think sometimes that was a lot harder, as opposed to really saying, like, this kind of sucks. I don't like this. I don't enjoy this. And I wish that these things would happen. Kind of let them get it out of their system. And then you refocus them on, okay, what can we do now? Like, this happened, your season ended. And yeah, it doesn't feel good and you don't have to like it. And I'm glad you're disappointed, because if you weren't disappointed, you probably didn't love the sport enough as it was. Yeah. So just kind of letting them have that and then saying, okay, what do you need now? And where do you want to go from here? Like, this is reality. What can we do given where the universe is now. And let's not think so far ahead, because the farther ahead you think, usually the more worried you become. So let's just focus on this week. What do you want to do this week that either helps you with your sport or just kind of helps you to adjust with life without sport? Really getting them to make things short term and more present focused than so far in the future or what's happened in the past.
Nice. Now, do you ever speak with, especially in these amateur situations when you're speaking with high schoolers, do you ever also communicate with their coaches to maybe try to develop a training plan, or is it just mainly you speaking with the athletes?
It kind of depends. So if I'm working with a team, then yes, the coaches are sort of involved in saying, okay, what does this team need? Because for some of the athletes, it wasn't as much missing the sport. It was missing being with their teammates. For some athletes, yes, it was missing their opportunity. But when you look at middle school athletes, it's not their senior year. It's not their year that they're being recruited. Yes, they're not playing, but it was the camaraderie that they missed.
Sure.
So trying to help coaches just do virtual team building or figure out what they can kind of brainstorm different ways of getting them to train and feel like they're part of a team. And so doing virtual workshops, things like that. But yeah, sometimes just working with the coach and kind of understanding what the athletes are going through, or if maybe the leadership group of the team could sense that the athletes need something more, talking to the coaches about that. One of the things going into the seasons that were happening was making sure the athletes were prepared for this season and not mentally thinking about what they lost or what they didn't have, or maybe not being as good as they were when things stopped because they hadn't been able to train for so long. So just kind of building the confidence towards how do we perform right now.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I think that's kind of what we're dealing with here in the endurance space. I think what we're going to see, we feel like we're going to be back to a start line, hopefully sooner rather than later. But I think a lot of our athletes are probably going to be a little bit nervous about coming back. Not take COVID out of it. Are they mentally and physically prepared? So what would you tell those athletes that may have been participating virtually, may have kind of slacked off with their training? How do they get back to that peak of, the 2019 marathon when they PR'd in the half marathon or their 5K or ran their first 5K? What would your advice to them be right now?
Well, the number one thing I always say is you're not who you used to be, good or bad. Like sometimes you're better than you used to be, but you don't want to assume that, oh, well, if I get this time, it's good enough when you could actually be better. And on the flip side, with a lot of athletes, whether they're coming back from injury, they're constantly comparing them to their pre-injured self. And it's not fair to them. It's just, you're not who you used to be. It's not good or bad. It's just a fact and it's reality. So given where you are right now, how good can you be? Mm-hmm. And so it's really embracing reality. And it's not good or bad. It just kind of, it is what it is. And there might be emotions wrapped around that. But then it's saying, okay, well, how good do you want to be? How good are you actually? And how do we get closer to where you want? Because you can't work backwards, you can only work forward. So really trying to sometimes just get them to have a plan, both physically and mentally, that advances the ball forward for them.
Yeah, I feel like runners deal with that struggle. I want to say more than anyone else, because running is such an objective sport. You just have a number at the end of the day, and it's so easy to hold on to that PR or that PB, whatever you refer to it as, and just keeping that as this this shrine that you're always trying to beat. And I love that you're never you're never who you used to be, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, most people think about it in terms of, why can't I get my PR again? Mm-hmm. But I've seen it with runners, particularly cross-country runners who, when they're in a race, they know kind of who their main competitors are and they sort of stay with them the whole time. Yeah. But they don't know how that person's been training. They don't know what they've been doing, and they're pacing off of someone else, which sometimes is good if you don't know your own pace, but mm-hmm. sometimes you're just feeling it that day and you've got to trust who you are today that, yeah, you can be way ahead of them.
Sure.
And so I think there's some of that balance in there too. Don't hold yourself back because of who you used to be. Don't compare yourself to other people. Like somebody may have been able to go down to Florida and been training all the time. And, they're swimming, they're doing cross training, they're doing all this stuff. And you might not have even been able to go to a gym. Mm-hmm. And you're still comparing yourself to the people around you instead of how do I make myself the best I can be? And I think that's a danger that a lot of people, regardless of the sport, but I see it a lot with runners and swimmers too, that they kind of get caught up in that.
Sure.
That's tremendous advice.
Yeah.
Wow.
Now, Troy, you were touching upon, the virtual aspect of training that you've been advising your athletes to do, Aimee. And have you advised them to do any virtual, obviously you said, group training events with your team, but any races? Have you, to keep that mental aspect?
I haven't. I generally think that sometimes, particularly with individual sports, I think it's really good for them to learn how to compete against themselves. Mm-hmm. But even that, if you had a small group that trains together, even if they're not always running together, you can say, okay, this is the course. I mean, map my run, and there's all these different things. You can go on it and say, okay, this is my course, try to beat me. And you can throw out those virtual challenges. One of the things that we did with our team when hockey shut down was we had a virtual golf tournament. So whatever golf course they played at, we just created a Google sheet and I said, okay, go play and put your scores in. You've got a month, play as much as you want, play just once, but let's everyone put your scores up and have bragging rights on there. Mm-hmm. And so it's little
I'm sure they love that.
They did.
Hockey players love golf, and they're usually pretty good golfers. So that's a great challenge.
There was a couple that shot like 100, and they were kind of chirped mercilessly. But like you could easily do that with running if somebody wants that competition, and if you can't be in the same place at the same time with the same starting line, you can generally meet the same conditions. I would even suggest to people, if you went out on a bright sunny day, the weather's perfect, and you get a great time, I'd go out, run the same course, but do it on a day that's not ideal for me. So now not only am I trying to race you, but I'm trying to do it with the odds stacked against me, because sometimes that happens. And just how do you block out the kind of the situation and the circumstance, which you don't control, and instead just focus on, I'm out here, I'm racing, I'm trying to get from point A to point B as fast as I can. Because a lot of times, and it's the same with you haven't run for a year, you haven't raced for a year, that's a situational variable, but it doesn't change the task. The task is to get from point A to point B as fast as you can. And the situation is what it is. You just focus on what you need to do.
That's a great point. Aimee, talk a little bit about, so we're talking about racing and professional athletes, and a lot of our focus is just getting people to move, people that have never moved before. What would be your one piece of advice to that person that has never been active, never considered themselves an athlete, but maybe during COVID, started walking around the neighborhood or started jogging? What would your piece of advice be to that person to continue on that path mentally so they can continue, taking that walk into a jog, into a run?
Yeah. So there's a great book called Atomic Habits, because I think when you're trying to change routines, really building those habits is key. And the basic premises of it is just get 1% better every day. What's something you can do a little bit better every single day? But it's how you create those habits. So removing obstacles, making it less difficult for yourself. I remember years and years ago, I read an article, it was Matthew McConaughey, saying how he just goes to bed at night and what he's going to work out in the morning. His sneakers are beside his bed. So when he gets out of bed, he slips them on, and then there's no excuse. It's not, I don't feel like getting dressed, I don't know where my sneakers are. He's literally getting out of bed, ready to go. And even if it's saying to yourself, for 1 week, I'm going to exercise a little bit harder every day. And you might just say it's for 5 minutes. Because eventually that 5 minutes, you're like, I could go a little longer. It's 6 minutes. I could go a little bit longer. And now it's 10 minutes. And then you build it up. So make it something that's really achievable, really attainable, but make a habit around it and understand why you do it. I mean, every doctor will tell you it's important to exercise, yet we have a huge part of the population that doesn't actually do it. So a doctor telling me that it's important isn't really driving me. So what is going to drive you? And I think that's anytime you're trying to make a habit, you have to know why it's something you want to do. It has to be important to you.
Find something personal that, can be can be benefited by making that change.
Yeah, you want to run around with grandkids someday, right? Or whatever it is. Making sure that you have it that's meaningful to you.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, the gist of what I'm getting here, Aimee, is a lot of things in general is that you're advising is to not blow things out of proportion, to not, look a year ahead or to even look years behind, but to really take it day by day, to look for those 1% changes and to make things gradual. And before you know it, you'll get closer to your goals and hopefully achieve them.
Yeah. People are generally either glass half empty, glass half full. I'm kind of there's water in the glass. And the key to it is you're the one that fills it up. So even if you're wired to be a little bit more negative and the glass is always half empty, at least if you know I can fill it up. Like I've got a picture of something over here that I can fill it up, you're good to go. And I think that's the important piece is regardless of how you view your situation, ideally, yes, it would be more neutral, it would be more focused on the present. But for some people, that's really hard. It's at least trying to have some self-ownership in what happens next. It's not what happens to you, it's what you kind of create for yourself.
Nice.
That's great.
Yeah. All good stuff that can be applied to anyone who's taking on any goals, but certainly, looking ahead to the marathon and it being virtual this year, I feel like a lot of our listeners can take all of this stuff to all this good word, good gospel to help them out in their training moving forward.
Yeah, I had friends who were signed up for the marathon, half marathon last year, and they decided on marathon day they were still running. So they went and they ran it and they said it was great. You could see other people doing it. Now they slept in a little bit longer, so they didn't get up at the 5:30, 6 o'clock to be at the start line. But there was something they had committed to doing, and they said it was one of the things that really helped them through all the shutdowns was they trained together, just the two of them. They would go run together, and then they had this date set, and that's what they were going for, and nothing was going to stop them. So, I think having something to look forward to, even if it's virtual, still drives people and gives them a goal to work towards.
That's a great point. Aimee, where do you see, we talked a little bit earlier about the mental aspect of sports and really, frankly, how it's evolved. Probably you see it on a daily basis, but over the last 10, 15 years, you have all the mental coaches and things like that. Where do you see it, 5, 10 years from now? Do you continue seeing it evolving?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I always tell people I want to work myself out of business so that everybody's mentally tough. We're good to go. You don't really need me anymore. But I think that part of why it continues to evolve is we had this culture for a little bit where everybody gets a participation trophy. Everything you do is great. And we have parents, there's this term called snowplow parents, that they just smooth the way for their kids. And everything's easy so that when they hit a road bump, they don't know how to overcome that challenge. College counseling centers have been overwhelmed for years because college students have not learned how to overcome difficulties. They haven't learned how to resolve conflict and be resilient. And so until we really start letting people fail and then teaching them how to pick themselves back up and refocus themselves, I think mental training is going to be part of it. But what's important about why my profession exists is because I'm a neutral person. I'm not your parent who has to tell you, it's okay, everything's good, go get them. I'm not a coach who's going to take away your playing time if you tell me you don't have confidence. I'm somebody who understands what you're going through and is just a neutral person and someone who can teach you the skills to do that. So it's really easy for people to say, don't worry about it. It's not a big deal. Just relax. But no one's teaching people those skills. So once you actually go out of your way to both teach the skills and then as individuals to learn those skills, it becomes a lot easier. But I think the field is it's grown significantly since I started in it.
You just touched on something that kind of triggered me too. How important are the coaches? Because we deal with coaches, but obviously on a professional level, I'm sure you've seen it all. How important are the coaches to the athletes from a mental, standpoint?
They're extremely important, but it works both ways.
Right.
You're not going to change the coach. So as an athlete, you have to deal with whatever the coach is that you have. Oh, yeah. On the flip side, coaches also need to be aware of how they impact their athletes. I had someone reach out to me the other day that said this group of young players, a lot of them wanted to quit because the coach was just on them and they just wanted to have fun. And he was like way too intense. And so sometimes that's the problem is coaches, they might know the sport, but they don't know how to teach. They don't know how to educate. They don't always understand the influence they have. It's not old school football yelling people's faces. So I think coaches definitely need to be aware, but on the flip side, the athletes need to learn how to deal with it as well. So it works both ways.
Yeah, that's great. Totally. Yeah, totally a two-way street there for sure. And it's the ones whenever you find those. Yeah, I mean, I think behind every great athlete is a great coach, and the ones that sync up the best, you see the best results from.
Yeah, I can tell you every coach that I ever had, and the ones that I loved and had a positive influence, and the ones I didn't like so much. And when I'm coaching my kids' little soccer, I give the kids stickers and we have some fun.
So what was your sport, Aimee? What you said?
I played basketball, soccer, and softball.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
Very
no hockey.
Yeah.
I did track for a year, but can't say I liked it that much, so I switched to softball.
We still got a fair bit of running in soccer and basketball. So
put me on a soccer field. I can run all day. Make me go in a circle, not my thing.
Yeah, totally. Too boring, right?
Yeah. Even when you put the hurdles in front of me, it still didn't entertain me enough.
Oh man. Yeah, those just usually caused me to trip, so I didn't like those either.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, thank you so much. All this wonderful words of wisdom and for your time as well, Aimee. We really appreciate you and everything that you're doing.
Thanks, guys. Good luck with all of your planning and coordinating, and get out there and move.
Absolutely. Thanks, Aimee. Have a great week.
Thanks.
Wow. Yeah. What a great way to kick things off here. That was perfect.
That was tremendous. I wasn't joking when I told her to send me the bill, because I think all of us can take a little piece of what she just said and incorporate it into day to day. Whether you're a racer or a mover, you can take a lot of the things that she just talked about and just incorporate it into your day. If you're a walker, even if you're not a runner, I mean, I thought it was tremendous. I want my kids to listen to it, who are both, volleyball and baseball. I just think that there was so much translation into the mental state of an athlete, especially an amateur athlete.
Sure.
She was great.
I mean, even the last few things she was saying, I was taking it as, oh man, I really need to start thinking more positively about other things in my life. Like, how can I be a better father? How can I be a better husband? Things like that. It's just turning everything into that positive spectrum. It can change everything. So
I was taking notes. Which is bizarre, Eric, because we can listen to this back.
We can, right?
You know what I mean?
Why are we taking notes?
I was taking notes, and I'm like, wait, I can listen to this back. But that's how you have a good.
I was with you, brother.
Start taking notes like you're in a class. So
yes, yeah,
really good stuff by Aimee Kimball, Capex Consulting, a local firm. So if anybody needs some coaching, reach out to Aimee. That was awesome.
Yeah, definitely some good local businesses right there that we're trying to support, and for good reason. So, Troy, just on our way out here, just got a couple questions for you and for P3R, because obviously we haven't checked in a few months, but so just how have you been finding during these quote unquote turbulent times of how P3R and you are remaining the true industry leader, and bringing you to where you are today?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that, it's been challenging, but I think over the last couple of months, and probably the last time we spoke, Eric, I think that we're starting to see that light at the end of the tunnel, right? So we wanted to get through, frankly, dark times, and we knew that there wasn't going to be events in the fall. And then we moved on and that light is getting closer. And the great thing about endurance space, races, is that you plan so far out. So we see that light. We have to start planning for live events. We feel the trajectory of the cases and obviously the safety plans and protocols that we already had in place that we were preparing for the marathon. They're going to translate well. So we're doing good. The staff is excited to get back to a live start line. I'm itching. I know our runners are itching, and hopefully it's this summer and we just take off. I mean, we've talked about this several times on this podcast, but we know there's new runners out there. And that's exciting, right? You know, there's new people that are going to want to show up to the start line. There's probably going to be old people that don't show up to the start line. So it's how to get those people back. And, you know, I have full faith in our team that will continue to be that leader as far as putting on that experience for our runners. So exciting times. We're almost to the end of this, hopefully.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the vaccine's rolling out, and I know just as well from my event industries with weddings and with school dances, proms and things like that, they're starting to occur again. And so it's definitely, we're heading in the right direction. And I know we're going to be back soon.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So looking forward to it. Liberty Mile, bring it on. Now that, you know, we're here, we have to look forward. What's going to be exciting, you know, about these virtual event? Obviously the big virtual event, the one in May, the marathon. Tell us a little bit more. I know you guys always have, whether it's in person or virtual, P3R doesn't hold back from coming out with reasons to show up, reasons to do new things, new and exciting stuff.
Yeah. I mean, we have so many things that we're planning kind of behind the scenes now that over the next couple of weeks we'll continue to roll out just ways to get people to move. You know, ways to get, you know, we've had a good response to just the virtual event, meaning that people are signing up just to run virtually that weren't signed up prior to our notification that we were switching from live to virtual. So I think that's a good trend to see. People want to get out and move. Yep. You know, the digital aspect, the engagement, the social media, we'll continue to talk to people, continue to inspire them. But I think this year's a little bit different. We'll be able to do some more things, maybe get out into the community, into the public a little bit more, which is exciting. So slowly get back to that feel, those, you know, while we can have 40,000 people on Liberty Avenue, try to slowly bring back those race day jitters a little bit, you know, more than we were able to over the last year. So I think there's a lot of exciting things coming up. And I think that, you know, we get through May, it'll transition well to a live start line in July and then just take off from there. So yeah, stay tuned. There's things rolling out, you know, every week. You know, this year for our marathoners and half marathoners, they're going to get a jacket. It's something that we've never done. It's something that, you know, when you spend money on a jacket, it's something that we normally don't do, but we want to obviously, you know, continue to keep that base of runners that have stuck with us and reward them. We want to, not just with the virtual marathon, but, you know, throughout the year, just continue to reward those people that not just stuck with us, but stuck with themselves and continue to move. And I think that's super important because they're going to be the ones, and we always talk about the emotion at the finish line. They're going to be the ones that we're going to be able to tell that stuck through COVID, that we're itching to get back. You know, you're going to see a lot of emotion, and we want to continue to reward them. So that'll be exciting to see them, not just with the virtual sharing pictures this year, but when we get back to a live start line, we'll be able to pick those people out.
Yeah, they conquered COVID, and it's absolutely, I mean, it's not an easy task. Again, like we were speaking with Aimee, it's you have an internal battle every single day, and the folks that get those jackets, you know, they'll have earned it for sure.
For sure.
That's some serious swag, man. I've run more races than I can count. I've never gotten a jacket.
I know, shirt, metal jacket, and the jackets are really nice. They have the 2021 branding on them, the move, you know, lightweight, you can run in them, but they're very versatile. So
I can't wait to see them.
Yeah. That'd be awesome. It's exciting.
Cool. Well, guys, this has been Behind the Start Line. So happy to be here with everybody again. My name is Eric Burnett. I was here with my co-host, Troy Schooley. Troy, thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Let's have a great season 2. I mean, this thing, you know, one thing that I want to thank the listeners out there real quick. Season 1 was such a success, and we pulled the final numbers and they exceeded. And my team will tell you that I set really high goals, and they exceeded all the goals that we had for season 1. So season 2, we're going to have great guests. We just had one today, but we're going to continue this and hopefully, you know, educate people, not just on running, but being able to bring guests like Aimee on and throughout the year, just something that they want to tune into. So I want to thank everybody for listening to season 1 because it was a huge success. So thank you.
Yeah, it really makes a difference. It gets us fired up. You know, we're going to deliver this for everybody out there, no matter how many people tune in. But when we hear that their numbers, like you guys have been showing, it just, I don't know, it gives us those race day itches,
those jitters
like
we talked about.
Earlier.
Yep,
those jitters, exactly. Yep. And that's fun. That's what we're all about here. So Well, guys, thank you so much once again for tuning in. Please do follow us on social media at Run with P3R. Once again, that's at Run with P3R. And you can reach out with any questions or feedback at behindtheline@p3r.org. And I really do urge you to do that. We want to hear from you guys. We want to know what it is you would love for us to talk about, and we'll answer your questions and do so right here on Behind the Start Line. My name is Eric Burnett. Thank you all so much for joining us.